What would you say if a cop leaned into your window and said, "I can smell it"? Because if you say the wrong thing next, your traffic stop can turn into a full search. And once you start talking, you may help build a case against yourself. Hit subscribe right now, because what I'm about to show you could be the difference between driving away or riding off in cuffs. Like this video too, so you can find it fast on the day you actually need it. Here's the reality. When an officer says he smells weed, alcohol, or anything illegal, he is not just making small talk. He's setting up the next move. That move is usually a search, more questions, or a delay while he tries to bring in a dog. If you panic, joke, explain, or argue, you can make his job easier. If you stay calm and use the right words, you protect yourself in a huge way. In this video, you're going to learn the exact line that blocks consent, the question that forces the stop into the open, and the sentence that shuts down the worst kind of roadside questioning. You're also going to learn what these lines can do and what they cannot do. Most people have no idea that the goal is not to win the argument on the roadside. The goal is to stop yourself from handing over extra evidence with your own mouth. This matters because your first instinct will probably be the wrong one. You want to seem nice, you want to seem innocent, you want to clear things up fast. So you say stuff like, "It's not mine," or "My friend was smoking earlier," or "Go ahead, I've got nothing." That feels smart in the moment, it feels cooperative, but that kind of talking can bury you. A simple denial can become an admission. A nervous joke can become suspicious behavior. A friendly yes can wipe out one of your strongest protections. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the same pattern keeps showing up. Drivers talk too much, explain too much, and consent too fast. Then later they say, "I didn't know what else to do." That's why you need a script before you ever see flashing lights in your mirror. The first thing you do is refuse consent the right way. Do not argue about the smell. Do not say the officer is lying. Do not start debating science, weed laws, or air fresheners. You stay calm, keep your hands where they can be seen, and say one clean sentence. Here's exactly what you say. "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Word for word. Memorize that line. That sentence matters because it closes one door right away. If the officer asks, "Mind if I take a look?" Your answer is not a speech. It is not why. It is not what for. It is not I guess. It is that one line. "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it makes the record clear. You did not invite the search. You did not help the search. You did not waive your protection by trying to sound nice. Now you need to understand something important. That line is powerful, but it is not magic. If an officer claims he already has probable cause, which means a legal reason to believe evidence is in the car, he may still search. That is why your refusal matters so much. You're not trying to physically stop the search. You are stopping the officer from saying you gave permission. That difference can matter later in a huge way. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In United States versus Ross, the court said that if police truly have probable cause to search a car, they can search the car and even containers inside it. In Maryland versus Dyson, the court said they do not need a warrant first if they already have probable cause. So if you say yes, you just handed them an extra reason. If you say no, you keep the issue where it belongs, on them. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Sure, I've got nothing to hide." Then the search becomes partly their own fault and their lawyer has less to fight later. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Then the officer has to stand on his own legal reason, not your permission. Let me show you exactly why this works in real life. The officer says he smells weed. He asks, "If you mind stepping out." Then he says, "You don't care if I take a quick look, right?" That word "quick" is bait. That friendly tone is bait. Your job is not to match his tone with nervous friendliness. Your job is to protect your future self. You say the line once, calm voice, no attitude, no extra words. If he asks again, you repeat it. If he searches anyway, you do not resist. You do not grab the door. You do not block him. You stay still. You stay respectful. Let the record be clear. You refused. This is 100% legal. And one more thing. Never say, "You can't search me." That is too broad and often wrong. Never say, "Do whatever you want." That sounds like consent. Never say, "I smoked yesterday, but there's nothing in here." Now that can become an admission. You want one sentence, clean and repeatable. "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Watch what happens when you use short, simple words. The whole tone changes. You stop helping. You stop filling in blanks. And you stop making the officer's job easier with your own mouth. Think you could say that without freezing up? Tell me in the comments, because this is the moment where most drivers lose control. The second tactic is the question that forces the stop into the open. Once the normal traffic business is done, or once the officer starts fishing with extra questions, you need to make him say what this stop really is. Here's exactly what you say. "Officer, am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Those exact words. Burn that into your memory. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. A traffic stop is supposed to be about the traffic reason that got you pulled over. Your license, your registration, proof of insurance, a warning or a ticket. That is the mission. Once that mission is over, police cannot just keep you there to go on a fishing trip unless they have a real legal reason. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In Rodriguez v. United States, the court said police cannot extend a traffic stop beyond the time needed for the stop's mission just to investigate other stuff without proper suspicion. That means your question is doing two things at once. First, it tells the officer you know the stop has limits. Second, it forces him to choose. Are you free to go, or is he now saying he is detaining you for more? Either answer matters. If he says you're free to leave, leave calmly. If he says you're detained, stop chatting and move to the next tactic. Your question does not need to sound aggressive. You're not picking a fight. You're making the officer define the moment out loud. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Why are you still asking me all this?" Then they sound emotional. The stop keeps drifting and they keep talking. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Then the officer has to answer the real question. Here's the reality. A lot of roadside cases get worse because drivers never mark the line between the traffic stop and the fishing trip. They sit there talking. They answer where they came from, where they're going, who was in the car, whether anyone smoked earlier, why the backpack is in the back seat, and whether they've ever been arrested before. None of that helps you. It only helps the officer build more suspicion. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection when the stop starts expanding. You are calmly forcing the officer to show his cards. Let me show you exactly how timing matters. Do not ask this question over and over while the officer is still running your license. That just sounds like you want to argue. You wait for the natural pause. Maybe he hands back your documents. Maybe he gives you the warning. Maybe he says, "Hang tight," and starts circling back with new questions. That is your moment. "Officer, am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Former police officers have confirmed this works. It makes the encounter clearer for everybody, including the body cam. Watch what happens when you ask it calmly. Either the stop ends, or the officer now owns the extra detention. That matters later. And if you are a passenger, this can matter even more. Passengers get confused and think the stop is only about the driver. But the law treats passengers as seized too during the stop. So if you are a passenger and the officer is done with you, asking if you're free to leave can protect you from staying in a growing mess that is not yours. The third tactic is how you stop yourself from talking into a case. When cops say they smell something, the next move is usually questions. When did you last smoke? Is there anything in the car I should know about? Whose bag is that? Why are you so nervous? This is where people crack. Listen closely because this is critical. Staying quiet by itself is not always enough. You need to say your rights out loud. You look at the officer and say this: "Officer, I am invoking my right to remain silent. I want a lawyer." Those exact words. If that feels too formal for you, too bad. Formal is good here. Clear is good here. Clean is good here. Berghuis v. Thompkins matters because the Supreme Court said your right to stay silent has to be invoked clearly. In plain English, the court said you cannot just sit there half silent and hope the law reads your mind. You need to say it. Now let's be real. During a traffic stop, you still hand over your license, registration, and proof of insurance if you are the driver. You still follow lawful commands like stepping out if ordered. You do not argue on the roadside. But when the questions shift from traffic stuff to investigation stuff, you do not help them. You do not explain the smell. You do not guess what someone else did in your car. You do not say, "There might be a roach in the ashtray." You do not say, "My cousin left something in here." You invoke and stop. Bad way. Most drivers say, I smoked a long time ago, but there's nothing in the car." Then that statement gets used against them and opens 10 more questions. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I'm invoking my right to remain silent. I want a lawyer." Then the officer gets no extra story to use later. This is 100% legal. And it is way stronger than trying to sound innocent. Innocent people talk themselves into handcuffs every day. Guilty people do too. The point is the same. Your mouth is not a search warrant, but it can become a gift bag full of evidence. When you invoke clearly, you stop that damage. You also stop the officer from twisting your nervous words into inconsistent statements. That phrase shows up in reports all the time. A lot of people worry this makes them look guilty. Forget that. The roadside is not a popularity contest. It is not a school debate. It is a legal event. You're protecting yourself, not trying to win the officer's approval. And yes, the officer may still keep pushing. He may act offended. He may say, "If you've got nothing to hide, why not answer?" That is pressure. You do not take the bait. You repeat your line. "Officer, I am invoking my right to remain silent. I want a lawyer." Former police officers have confirmed this works because it cuts off the free information stream they usually count on. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection once the questioning starts. One more thing. If the officer searches anyway, you do not switch back into chatter mode. Do not suddenly start explaining. Do not try to rescue the moment with a story. Stay with your script. Non-consent. Detained or free to leave. Invoke your silence. That is your lane. Most people already clicked away. If you're still here, you're the one who won't panic on the roadside. Drop a comment saying I'm still here, because the next part ties all of this together. Now let's lock in the legal framework in plain English, because if you understand the rules, your script makes even more sense. United States v. Ross says that if police really have probable cause for a car search, they can search the car and the containers inside it. That is why your first line is not, "You can't search." Your first line is, "I do not consent." You're separating your rights from their claim. Rodriguez v. United States says police cannot drag out a traffic stop longer than needed just to go hunting for crimes without the right level of suspicion. That is why your second line matters so much. Am I being detained, or am I free to leave? You are forcing the stop to stay honest. You're making the officer either end it or own the extra detention. Arizona v. Gant says police do not get an automatic free pass to search a vehicle after every arrest. In plain English, arrest does not mean open season on your whole car. There are limits. That matters because officers sometimes act like once you're out of the car, every inch of it is theirs. Not always. Your job is not to argue case law on the shoulder of the road. Your job is to avoid consent, avoid self-incrimination, and avoid giving them more than the law already gives them. That is why these tactics fit together so well. The first one blocks consent, the second one exposes delay, the third one shuts down self-inflicted damage. Put those together and you stop donating evidence for free. Now let's walk through a real stop the wrong way and the right way so you can hear the difference in your head before it ever happens. You're driving home at night. The officer says you rolled through a stop sign. He gets your license and comes back 10 minutes later. Then he leans toward your window and says, "I can smell weed. Step out of the car." Your heart starts pounding. Wrong way first. You step out and instantly start talking. I mean, not today. My friend smoked earlier. There's nothing in there. You can check if you want. The officer hears 3 gifts. 1, possible drug use. 2, possible recent drug presence. 3, consent. Then he asks if there's anything in the car he should know about. You say, "Just a vape pen, maybe." Now he has more. He searches. He finds cash, pills, a gun, or something that is not even yours. Then the report says you admitted drug odor, admitted a vape, and consented to the search. That is how a minor stop becomes a major case. Now the right way. Same stop, same words from the officer. You step out if ordered. You keep your hands visible. You do not argue about the smell. You say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." He asks again. You repeat it. He keeps talking and starts fishing. You wait for the stop to either finish or clearly turn into something more. Then you ask, "Officer, am I being detained or am I free to leave?" If he says detained, you stop all extra chatter. And you say, "Officer, I am invoking my right to remain silent. I want a lawyer." Then you shut up. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Go ahead, I've got nothing to hide." Then they help create the very record that hurts them later. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Then, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Then, "I'm invoking my right to remain silent. I want a lawyer." Then the officer gets far less from them. That does not mean you magically drive away every time. Sometimes the officer will search anyway. Sometimes you may still get arrested. But here's the difference. In the wrong version, you helped do it. In the right version, you protected your rights. You protected your future defense and stopped yourself from making it worse. That is a huge win. Next video, I'm breaking down what to say when a drug dog alerts during a stop. Subscribe right now because that one gets people trapped. If you miss it, you'll miss the most important follow-up tactic of all. So let's lock this in. First, when the officer says he smells something, do not debate and do not explain. You say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Second, if the stop starts stretching into a fishing trip, you ask, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Third, when the questions start piling up, you invoke clearly and say, "I am invoking my right to remain silent. I want a lawyer." And fourth, if they search anyway, you do not resist and you do not start talking just because you're scared. Hit subscribe so you catch that drug dog video before you need it for real. Smash the like button if this script just saved you. And drop a comment telling me which line you're going to memorize first. Stay safe out there.